Welcome to the Wild About Turkey Hunting podcast, a show for those who love the thrill of that first morning gobble, who love sharing the outdoors with a close friend, and for those who never want to stop learning about this awesome ritual we call spring turkey hunting. I'm Josh Davis, host and creator of the YouTube channel Davis Family Hunts. I'm wild about turkey hunting, and I bet you are too. Thanks for joining. Let's get started. So, tell me if this sounds familiar. Birds are gobbling from the roost in 3 different directions. The morning sunrise seems to have every tom on fire. All the gobbling holds the promise that it's going to be a great day, but something just doesn't work out with your roost setup. The tom flies down, he answers your best fly down cackle, and then a hen butts in. He gobbles a few more times, but it's obvious that he's drifting off with that seductive hen. But thankfully, another bird is still gobbling on a distant ridge, so you tighten up your bootlaces and you head over to him. When you finally get over to that ridge, you call from where you think you last heard him, and he gives one courtesy gobble from the hollow below, and then you can't get him to answer again. You call and call and call, but nothing has happened. And it's now 8:30, and the sun is starting to get warm, and the woods have gotten quiet. You haven't heard a gobble in over an hour, so you call it a day, and you head for the truck, figuring that you'll just have to set up on that roosted gobbler again tomorrow and hope that he doesn't have that hen with him so that you can kill him. And by 9 o'clock, your hunting woods are in the rearview mirror, and you frustratingly wait for your chance to greet the woods at first light again in the morning. It's true that a lot of hunters find themselves discouraged and giving up right before things can turn productive. A lot of times it's because they either don't know the typical location preferences of turkeys all throughout the day, or they don't understand where to go to put themselves in the right calling spot after that exciting action that comes right after fly down. In today's episode, we'll cover 6 sweet spot locations that will help you connect with that longbeard at any time of the day. This is Season 1, Episode 3. Thanks for joining in. There's a giveaway going on right now, and you're invited to join for free. Just head over to davisfamilyhunts.com and sign up for our newsletter. Once you do that, you'll get a link to enter the giveaway. This is your shot at winning a cool prize package, which includes a really nice personalized box call, perfect for bringing in that next longbeard this spring. Don't wait too long because this chance won't last forever, so make sure you enter today. Again, just go to davisfamilyhunts.com, sign up for our newsletter, use the link to enter the giveaway, and get ready for your chance to win a prize package that can help you succeed in the turkey woods. Now, let's get back to the show. It's something a lot of turkey hunters know, but very few practice, and it's sticking it out and hunting all day for turkeys. Now, I realize that some states have restricted hunting hours and that you can't hunt all day, or maybe you can only hunt till noon, like our first week here in Ohio, or 1 p.m., or whatever the cutoff may be. Regardless, the encouragement is that so long as it is legal hunting time, hunt. The turkeys are out there, and you should be too. And yes, it does take a lot of initiative. It can take a lot of patience. But when you're toting out that heavy gobbler with those sharp-pointed spurs, it can make the extra effort all worth it. So let's take a walk through the woods from sunup to sundown and talk about where you should be, where you can hope to find turkeys, and what you should do when you're there. Our first stop is pre-dawn, and that's first light to sunrise. It probably goes without saying, but the first place I want to be as the day begins is on a ridgetop or the highest listening point that I can get to. It's my best chance for hearing gobblers from as many directions as possible, and it hopefully puts me slightly above any roosted turkey I may try to call up to me once he hits the ground. Now, let me note that if you have a high vantage point that's deep into the woods from your parking spot, then make every effort to get there early, well before any hint of light. On more than one occasion, I've arrived to my listening point about 10 to 15 minutes before the first songbird even makes a peep, only to find out that when the woods begins to awaken, that I had just walked right past the gobbler roosted on my way in. He may have even heard me pass underneath him, but dismiss my footsteps in the dark for a traveling deer or a raccoon that was bumbling about. And if you're trying to reach your destination after turkeys are awake, and especially if there's a little bit of light for them to see from their roost limb, you can bet that you'll spook that bird way off, and it might just be silence to start your whole morning. I'd also suggest staying at your listing location for at least 20 minutes after first light before deciding to move on. Some birds are just slow in getting the morning going. My mind goes back to a hunt that Dad and I were on last spring in Michigan, and we suspected a bird was roosted in the area because we had seen him in a field the evening before, not 300 yards from this patch of woods. But when morning came, all seemed quiet, and we thought that maybe nobody had been home. Well, beyond the expected gobbling time, he finally opened up and sounded off. Then he proceeded to sit on his tree limb for an hour and gobble on his own about every 40 seconds or so, without us even calling to him one time until he flew down. If those 20 minutes have passed and you haven't heard a bird, it might be time to pull out that locator call and put it to use. I usually start with an owl hoot, but if crows are already talking in the distance, then I may go right to a crow call. If you did hear a bird, I recommend getting as close as you can without spooking him before you begin calling. The shorter the distance between you and the bird, the less chances you have of something, meaning a hunter or a hen or a predator, running interference. You can usually get away with much softer calling in this setup too, as it seems that the sound just carries well in that soft morning air. So let's say that your first setup doesn't produce any luck. What do you do next? Here's how I would approach my daybreak session. So daybreak is sunrise to about 9:30, and at this point, I want to stay with the wooded cover as much as I can help it. I want to be traveling ridges and logging roads or shelves that run north and south. I'm anticipating turkeys traveling from the east in a westward direction with their attempt to keep the sun at their back and fully engaging the landscape before them with a well-lit point of view. My goal is to keep from having the sun in my face, but rather having the bird come in from my 1 or 2 o'clock position or my 10 and 11 o'clock positions, meaning that they're walking away from the sun, and as I set up, the sun is directly to my right if I'm facing south, or to my left if I'm facing north. This allows the bird to keep it travel in a way that seems to be an advantage to him, but gives me a setup that keeps to the shadows and can see him plainly coming through the sunlit forest. If I don't hear a bird gobbling, or even if I do, I'm probably going to go ahead and move to set up in an area where I know that birds prefer to hang out once they've flown down from their roost. This is where my preseason scouting really comes into play. It's likely going to be a preferred strutting spot. It might be a little corner of a food plot, a gas line opening, or a wide logging road on some high ground. My previous outings will confirm likely spots by way of hearing and seeing birds or finding strut marks, displaced wing feathers, and lots of tracks. And if I don't have the luxury of scouting ahead of time, I will rely on previous knowledge of turkey behavior from that area, whether that's a history from another season or an observation from even yesterday's hunt. Anticipate where turkeys like to meet up or where a gobbler might like to show up and gobble for a while to make his presence known if he wakes up in a tree alone. Get there and be willing to listen carefully. A tom may not come in with a big announcement, especially if he's already on his way to that area. So listen carefully for drumming or rustling footsteps in the leaves. A gobbler may just show up at a moment's notice. If I've reached the point of mid-morning and haven't encountered a willing participant, then I'm headed to fields as my next destination. So this is a mid-morning setup from about 9:30 to 11 a.m. After the first several hours of courting and breeding and searching, a turkey tends to get hungry. So open fields are often a great buffet for wild turkeys who are ready to get their fill. As the sun gets higher in the sky, insects get a lot more active. And turkeys know that fields of any sort can provide a lot of good protein. Picked crop fields or food plots are also an extra added benefit for grabbing some easy grains or some tender plant shoots that are growing during their time of hunting for bugs. Now, fields are great because they allow you to cover a large area at once in hopes of seeing a bird. The downside is that the birds out in the open can see a long distance in most directions, which makes your chances of joining them in the field for a shot nearly impossible. So when hunting fields that you know have turkeys out in them, or when moving from a woodlot to a field opening, try to use low spots, such as ditches, creek bottoms, and things like that to help guide your movement. You can pop up from time to time in a well-shaded or heavy cover area to glass across an open field in search of a bird that may be out there feeding or out there strutting. If you are someone who uses a decoy, getting to a field edge with a long viewing distance can work in your favor. Since you're adding the visual to complement the calling, birds will often commit much more regularly to walking within shooting distance. But just be sure that you're tucked into some cover enough that the approaching bird doesn't see you standing out like a sore thumb as he makes his way across the field to your setup. The same is true for hunting without a decoy near a field as well. Though many fields tend to be flat, there's usually some topographic characteristics to them that will create a few blind spots. So consider setting up near one of those areas. It could be a swell or a hedgerow or an inside corner of a field where the gobbler must come within gun range to lay eyes on what he thinks is the hen vying for his attention. After dedicating most of the late morning to field areas, it's time to return toward the roost area. And so this is the midday period from about 11 a.m. to noon. And more than one old-timer has sworn that the best practice for picking up a lonely gobbler during midday is return to the roost area from where you first encountered a gobbler at sunrise. Perhaps you worked him for a while, but the hens won the duel. Or maybe you heard a gobbler, but you couldn't get over to him in time before he went quiet. And it's an attempt to reconnect with a gobbler in a place you once knew that he was earlier. The idea is to mimic a hen who is returning to the place where she knew a gobbler was when the day began. And if a tom was roosted with hens in that same area, he too may circle back around and check that location in hopes of hooking up with a hen that he maybe missed on the first go-around. One year, Dad shot a really nice tom literally 2 minutes before the 12 o'clock closing time of our opening day hunt in Ohio. And we had heard a bird at daylight on a ridge almost a quarter mile opposite from where we stood at first light. And we didn't go after that bird because it has a deep gas line ravine to descend and then climb back up in order to get to that bird. So instead, we went after other birds on the roost. However, we struck out that morning and decided to go over to where we had heard that distant bird. And around 11:30, we sat down, did some blind calling right near that bird's morning roost. And a few minutes later, we were greeted by one gobble. The rest of the time, everything was silent, though we kept calling. And finally, we were about to pick up and leave, and I looked over my right shoulder toward Dad, who was sitting to my right as well, only to see a gobbler in full strut not 40 yards behind him. And Dad was able to get turned around and shoot that bird before the noon buzzer. Where the bird fell was not likely more than 60 yards from where he had sat on his roost that morning. In the long stretch of the afternoon, there are two places where I'll be sure to spend some time, and they are fields and creek bottoms. So the afternoon period I would consider about noon to 6 p.m. If it's very hot, say 80 degrees or more, I'll definitely focus my time working creek bottoms and low, close, flat areas. If birds have spent a lot of their morning time in fields and out in the hot sun, they're likely wanting to come catch a cool drink and loaf in the shade for a while. However, they're probably not far from a field, which is why going back to the same tactics I talked about for morning field hunts is beneficial. One major difference in afternoon hunting is that many times birds are not as vocal as they were in the morning when they were hot and ready and full of love for the day. By afternoon, they've dealt with a lot of gobbling and fighting and breeding, and they just seem to be more relaxed. They can still be curious, but they just seem to be more chill. So don't expect a lot of gobbling during these hunts, but do expect a bird to come in quiet. Don't overlook dusting areas and watering holes too if you're in dry country. Though it may be best to build yourself a little natural blind and to plan on a long sit, but it can be rewarding to catch an afternoon nap only to look up and see a gobbler loafing around in that routine spot. And for podcast insiders, I'll leave a bonus strategy for afternoon hunting on our insider page. To get the special link for free bonus content on the members only part of our website, you need to sign up for our newsletter. It's totally free, and you can find that sign-up link in the notes for this podcast, or you can just head over to davisfamilyhunts.com and sign up right there on the homepage. After you sign up, you'll get a link to check out the bonus tips from this episode and more, all for free. Again, that's davisfamilyhunts.com. So get signed up for our newsletter, and you can pick up more from our insiders page, which gives you bonus content, special discounts, and more. So the last setup of the day means a second visit near the roost site. This is evening time, which would be about 6 p.m. to sunset. And just like I talked about the hopes of a late morning visit to the roost area, this now would be a good time to have a second visit to the roost site in hopes of catching a gobbler returning to his favorite perch. I don't necessarily want to get right into the roost zone itself, but I want to be set up on a natural path of travel a turkey may take to get to that roost area. It might be a certain terrain funnel or a transition from an afternoon strut zone to the woods where he'll spend the night. If nothing else, hopefully I'll be within earshot of hearing a turkey fly up. If I'm really lucky, I may even see or hear birds as they take to the roost. But if I don't get that opportunity to shoot one on the ground that evening, you can be sure that I'm going to be back in that area again the next morning, ready to do it all over again, but with high anticipation, knowing that there is, in fact, a gobbler hovering in a tree nearby. And that can make for a tough night of sleep with all the excitement of what the next morning's going to bring. Though nothing is a guarantee in the turkey woods, and knowing that there is always unpredictable turkey behavior, it is true that comfortable birds are creatures of habit. And I hope that rather than calling it quits in the first few hours of the morning, that you'll go the extra mile to keep yourself in the turkey game. Give these sweet spots a try. No matter what the clock might say, there are turkeys out there somewhere. You just have to stay with it. Keep looking, keep seeking, keep searching one out. In 2 Chronicles 6:9, it says, "The eyes of the Lord search the whole earth in order to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to him." I'm reminded that we have a God who never stops seeking us out and offering us encouragement and strengthening us in our desire to do what is right. And I hope that the Lord blesses you today as you try to devote yourself to him as well. I'm thankful for his support, and I'm grateful for your time with me today. If you benefited from these tips today, could you do me one small favor? Go online right now and share this episode with one friend who you think will love it. It means a lot to know that you took the time to tune in and that you found something helpful from this podcast. You're also welcome to visit our website, davisfamilyhunts.com, and I'll add links in the description for you to explore. Don't forget that I'd love to hear from you too. If you want to submit a question to be answered on my podcast, I encourage you to use the podcast tab and leave a recorded message for me. We'll select a question to cover during a future show, and if we use your question in the show, we'll send you a small gift pack, which will include some stickers and some other special items for your next hunt. I also invite you to check out our YouTube channel, Davis Family Hunts, which covers a broad spectrum of subjects, from the various sounds turkeys make to our experiences hunting with our kids. We'd be delighted if you could sign up to watch more of our content focused on turkey hunting. It would be a great honor for you to follow us on Facebook and Instagram as well. Just search for Davis Family Hunts on either platform to keep up with our activities, and we'd value the opportunity to interact with you there. I hope that you find happiness in your next outdoor adventure. Whether it's about hunting turkeys or deepening your relationship with Jesus Christ, the more you learn, the more you can apply your knowledge, and the more it enriches your life. The more proficient you become, and the more you can enjoy the experience. The pursuit is wild. Never stop learning.